Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined today by Sean Zerillo. We're also going to have Grant Neiffer coming in with his home run props. So his dinger card is full. We're going to into that at the end of the episode. But as always, on Mondays, we start with Sean's best bet. Let's hop right into it. We got Phillies and M's, two teams that have deep postseason aspirations. You like the Mariners as a short favorite. It's about minus 105, minus 110 out of the market. It was a great pitching matchup, at least until about a month ago. Ranger Suarez has hit a skid, giving up five or more earned in three of his last five trips to the hill. Any concerns on the other side of this for the M's from a travel perspective? This is the end of their long East Coast road trip. Do you think they're going to be worse for the wear here? And if not, how much would you go in terms of the price point to be able to back Gilbert in a spot like this?
Yeah, so in terms of the pricing on this game, I only like the Mariners technically up to minus 112. I projected them closer to minus 120, but the best bet and the purpose of a starting off with this bet is the fade of Ranger Suarez and fading him in whatever fashion you can. We'll take a look at some prop markets after this show wraps up. I'm just trying to Google Williamsport to Philadelphia. It seems like it's about a 3 hour drive or so. I'm imagining the Mariners drove from Williamsport last night to Philly or driving this morning. So probably got on a bus as opposed to getting on a plane. A little bit different of a travel circumstance, but not too worried about the overnight travel as we typically would be with teams coming off of a Sunday night game into a Monday. That said, Ranger Suarez, velocity at what is now a career low. In his last two starts, 90.2 and 90.3 miles an hour on his sinker. He was at 92.6 earlier in the season. It's roughly where he was last year. His career average closer to 93. So seeing the velocity trending down, not only in the last two starts, but very slowly, month by month, start by start throughout the season. Each start tended to lose just a little bit off of the fastball, and now he's down two full ticks relative to where he was, two and a half full ticks relative to where he was at the start of the season, or at least when he came off of the IL in May. Ranger's never been able to stay healthy through a full season. When he is healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in the sport. I mean, that's not even overstating him. When he is healthy, he is an ace level pitcher and pitches to a low threes, high two ERA. But it seems like half of every season, he is not healthy. And right now, it is very evident both in the velocity dip and in the underlying indicators that that is the case. First half versus second half, and he's only made five starts in the second half. So it is a relatively small sample, but first half versus second half of 2025, expected FIP gone up from 3.5 to 4.7. Strikeout minus walk down 5%. Gone below average too. It's gone from 17%, which is above major league average, to 12%, which is below the league average. Pitching plus down from 107 to 99. Bot ERA up from 367 to 405. So I think Logan Gilbert is as good as I projected him coming into the year. He obviously dealt with some injury concerns of his own. He's been great since his IL stint. Expected FIP right around 3. Strikeout minus walk roughly where he was last year at about 26%. Logan Gilbert's an ace. Ranger Suarez looks like he's falling apart. And when you combine that with the fact that Zach Wheeler is now on the IL dealing with a pretty serious injury, Jesus Luzardo has been up and down throughout the season. I think Luzardo is fine going forward. It seemed like he was tipping pitches, but he's a guy who's had injury concerns in the past. And Aaron Nola got shelled coming off the IL yesterday. So suddenly the Phillies pitching staff, which looked like it was the best of the National League, or at least their starting staff, which looked like it was the best of the National League, now has major holes you can poke into it. And the Dodgers, of course, getting healthy with Snell and Glasnow and all those dudes throwing well as they near the end of the season. So the NL tipping back towards the Dodgers seemingly over the past week plus. But in terms of best bets for today, I'd find a way to fade Ranger Suarez, whether it's betting the Mariners up to minus 112. First five, you could probably take to minus 125, or maybe some Suarez unders, under strikeouts, over walks, under outs recorded. We'll take a look at the prop market after this show wraps and see what other ways we want to bet him. But definitely a guy to keep an eye on going forward because the Phillies need innings from these dudes. And as long as he's like not actively complaining about injury, they'll probably keep running him out there. But I do think he's a pitcher worth targeting and fading at this point.
Let's pause here for a moment and talk Wheeler. The Phillies brass, it seemed as though they, exhaled when they got the news on the blood clot But then in the same breath, they're not coming out and saying exactly how they're going to treat this from a rehab perspective. The kind of like if there's a procedure, if there's some kind of treatment that he can put into his, regular routine in the next 2 to 3 weeks. How concerning is this? Is this something that could just implode their entire season, or do you think they truly did dodge a bullet and they're just trying not to get ahead of themselves in terms of when he could come back, maybe at the end of September and certainly into the playoffs?
Yeah, obviously I'm not a medical expert. I'm not too familiar with other pitchers having blood clots and like having to rehab or come back from that. So I don't really want to speak as to the timeline for his return or, what that could mean for the Phillies. But if he's not there in October, like I was already low on the Phillies offense. Nick Castellanos has not been hitting for months. And also, I think the Phillies have shown in past postseasons that you can exploit their offense. You can get them to swing and miss and chase pitches with good velocity, with higher velocity and better breaking balls in the postseason. Yes, in the regular season, they've cut down on their chase rate. I don't think that's sustainable for them come October. So I was in general kind of down on the Phillies, and I personally do think, this is the final year of their window. If not, it has already closed. I mean, clearly they're going to be in the mix this year, but I don't know without Wheeler if they have enough to ultimately raise the trophy. So yeah, I'm kind of out on the Phillies, just based on the fact that I'm not expecting Wheeler to come back at 100%. Like again, I don't know, the history of blood clots, what guys the prognosis is in terms of timeline or like recoverability, whether guys can get back to 100%, whether it's something that disappears. But assuming he will be 90% at best the rest of the way, yeah, I'm kind of out on the Phillies, and I'll be finding ways to target against them. I just don't see them scoring enough runs in the postseason. I think their bullpen's great. They'll get Alvarado back. They will have good starts from guys like Jesus Luzardo, but I don't know if that's going to be enough in the National League, especially as I brought up. You need four starters in the NL. You can't roll over you can roll over your starters in the NL. So you only technically need three. But even Luzardo, by himself, right? That's probably not enough. You need Wheeler to come back and throw games 1 and 5 of a potential 5-game series. And I don't know if he's going to be there for that. And also, they may not want to push him on short rest either. Once you get to, the NLDS, like, are you going to start Zach Wheeler on 3 days rest in game 4 after going in game 1? It's probably less likely now than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Let's turn now to your favorite underdog, the Astros plus 125 against the Tigers. You're not going to believe it, gentle listeners. We're fading Jack Flaherty yet again. In his last 2 starts, the wheels have completely fallen off. He's given up 16 hits, 10 earned. Hard hit percentage is spiking. Arrighetti finally putting it together on the other side of this. How much do you need from him in terms of innings, pitch count, essentially handing over to the bullpen, what, 2 or 3 runs? You feel like that's pretty comfortable for the Astros to be able to cash here as a dog?
Yeah, 3 runs through 5, I'll take from Arrighetti. A 60 ERA is not great, but that's what I would take from him in this start. His command hasn't been great since coming back from his thumb injury. We've mentioned it twice on the pod now. He got hit in the outfield with a bad ball, broke his thumb, went on the IL for a bit, came back. The stuff looks good. The command has been wonky. He has more walks than strikeouts, I believe, across his 2 starts. He also gave up like 11 singles in his first start back against the Marlins, but the pitching models say he's fine. The command is down, as I said, about a 93 location plus over the past 2 starts, 98 career, but 101 stuff plus, 3.8 body array aligns with expectations for Arrighetti. So I think third start back, as he continues to get a better feel for the command, he should continue to pitch a little bit better. If you want to live bet the Astros, if they're down 1-0, 2-1 through 4 innings, and Jack Flaherty's facing the Astros order for a third time, I think you can live bet the Astros because Flaherty's time through the order splits are what really stands out in terms of his performance. And watching him through all these starts, he gets hit starting in the fourth, fifth, sixth inning. First time through the order, sub 700 OPS, 661. Second time through, 701. Third time through, 880. And guys hitting over 300 with that 880 OPS, third time through the order. So Flaherty, everybody has worse third time through the order splits, but Flaherty seemed to be even more pronounced. And for some reason, AJ Hinch not being as aggressive, pulling him out of the game as he was typically, as he was a little bit with him last year. I think the Tigers relievers have just thrown a ton of innings since the second half of 2024, and Hinch is just trying to get them to the playoffs without burning this bullpen out, considering they are already in first place in their division. Last year, they had to kind of play catch up down the stretch in order to get into the playoffs. And as a result, they were throwing their relievers every single day. This year, they have a division lead. They're sitting on it. Let's get the bullpen to the playoffs healthy without overworking them. So I think Flaherty does continue to get thrown out there a little bit longer than maybe would be optimal if this was a postseason start. If you're playing tournament baseball, prefer the Astros bullpen, prefer the Astros defensively. I make Houston about plus 107 here, would bet them down to plus 116. This line actually went away from me overnight, though. I bet this at plus 125. I saw a plus 135 at the same book this morning. So a atypical spot where we're not getting COV with one of these overnight bets. I feel like we usually hit at about a 75% clip in terms of getting COV or at least substantial CLV. So price target doesn't adjust for me. I still make it about plus 116 in terms of my target and where I'd bet this game down to. And again, you can probably live bet into this as well as Flaherty faces the lineup for a third time.
Football season is here, folks, and we've got some huge improvements and updates coming to the award-winning Action Network app, which we're very excited to get to in the coming weeks. But to get the most out of the app, you still need to be an Action Pro subscriber. It's only with Action Pro you get real-time pick alerts from me, Sean, and the entire Action Network team of experts. Plus, you can access pro projections powered by Sean Kerner's predictive analytics team. So you're going to get his plays, you're going to get everything from his team, all through pro projections, plus a ton of other benefits. Now, right now, Action Network listeners can go and save $20 off their annual price of Action Pro. What you need to do is go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use code PAYOFF20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro. Use code PAYOFF20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Before we get into Grant Neiffer's dinger card here for Monday, let's get into the rest of your card, Sean. We're looking at the monster series between the Brew Crew and the Cubbies. It starts with a great pitching matchup in Game 1. I believe first pitch is 2:20 Eastern between the Cubs and the Brewers. Peralta and Horton on the bump. You're on the under in this massive NL Central showdown, but you also like a side. Walk me through that.
Yeah, Cubs and under. I'm buying into Cade Horton, what he's been doing. I mean, since the All-Star break is really no different. He's just gotten a little bit lucky since the All-Star break. His expected FIP is around 3.8. He's given up, I believe, 1 run in 5 starts, and his ERA is 0.032. But this kid does look super confident. He had, prospect pedigree. This isn't coming out of nowhere. And he has 2 breaking balls that grade very highly in terms of stuff plus. Now, as he continues to progress as a big league pitcher, I would like to see him throw the fastballs a little bit less and the breaking balls a little bit more, just because they grade out as significantly better pitches, needs to use the fastballs to set up those breakers as opposed to the other way around. Because right now he's throwing his four-seamer, I believe, around 50% of the time, and it is getting hit the hardest among his pitches. So pull back a little bit on that, maybe introduce a cutter, or just go to your breaking pitches a little bit more aggressively in the future. I think he throws the changeup a bunch too, and it's fastball changeup that gets used too much. I don't think he throws a sinker. I'm doing this offhanded in my head and looking at like his player page previously, but yeah, it's a profile that screams throw your secondary stuff, throw your breakers a little bit more, throw your fastball a little bit less, and you'll probably have more success doing so. Now, obviously, there's a huge differential in the offensive quality of late between these teams. The Brewers have been hitting everything, but a large part, and they have one of the highest contact rates in baseball, one of the lowest swinging strike rates. They are a team who is intentionally putting the ball in play. And as a result, they've gone nuts with runners in scoring position over the past 2 weeks. I think in that series against, now I'm losing. I think it was the Pirates that they played, that they swept at home. I think they hit like 500 over 4 days with runners in scoring position. They every single day it was like 8 for 15, 7 for 14 throughout that series. That they legitimately must have gone like 30 for 60 with runners in scoring position in that series. That is something that is obviously unsustainable. They have, I believe, the second highest or highest batting average with runners in scoring position, the highest or second highest OPS. They have a very good plate approach as a team, but also you are not going to hit 500, 400, 300 with runners in scoring position. At best, you're probably going to do about 270. So, yes, the Brewers' offense has been on fire over the past 2 weeks. A 136 WRC plus. No, it is not sustainable in terms of them being the best offense of baseball. I think it has largely been driven by RISP luck. That said, the Cubs have been miserable offensively. Last 2 weeks, 29th in WRC plus. This Cubs offense has completely gone cold. Pete Armstrong, a big reason for that. He's just not hitting whatsoever. That said, I do like the Cubs. I make the Cubs about I think minus 135. You can bet them up to minus 125. You could imagine the Brewers are probably still a little bit public and a little bit overvalued in the betting market. Bet the Reds yesterday. Reds went from minus, I think, 103 to minus 125, like a huge steam came in on the Reds and ended up moving that line. Obviously, that was not a sweat-free win because the both teams made it very interesting in late game situation. But in terms of the under and the total here, two elite defensive teams, two of my better defensive teams in my model, both top five, top seven by DRS and outs above average. But also the Cubs offense being cold, Cubs bullpen a little bit better rested today. The Brewers bullpen actually took a day off yesterday too. They only threw Mears, I think, who should be unavailable today. So game one of a doubleheader, it gets a little sketchy, right? Because if a guy falls behind, if one team falls behind, they're going to save their relievers for game two. But this under has been moving down. I took under 8.5 at minus 120 as the market was moving to 8. I like this down to 8 at minus 110. Project this closer to 7.5. And also, this game, this doubleheader today has triggered a pair of Action Lab systems in terms of under wagers as well. I believe that game two total is 9. We don't know who the starting pitchers are as of yet. It's likely to be Chad Patrick against Jamison Tyone. I think if that is the case, if those guys are the starting pitchers, that 9 for game two looks high as well. It's a little tough to bet it before you see the bullpen usage in game one, but I do think that should be closer to 8 than it is to 9. So under in game one to 8 minus 110, Cubs game one to minus 125, and then likely that game two under, assuming it's Patrick and Tyone, I probably like down to 8.5 at minus 110 as well. So we'll see once those starting pitchers get confirmed if I fire on the game two under. Likely to do so. I just want to know who's actually pitching.
You've been a brave bettor this entire season, and you faded Paul Skeens in some spots, targeted him, looked at some numbers, and said, there's just too much value to pass up. Well, on top of that historic performance and being able to go to the window and cash, being, fading one of the best pitchers in baseball, you're now looking at it. He's been mortal twice in his last 3 starts. He gave up 4 earned to both the Rockies and the Brewers. And now Toronto comes in against them, and they've exploded for double-digit runs 4 times already this month, now sitting atop the AL East. Is there anything else outside of this? We know the natural limitations of the Pirates lineup, so you need a gem from Skeens. Anything else under the hood for this matchup that you like Toronto going off just at plus money at plus 105?
Yeah, maybe Skeens under strikeouts. This is the toughest matchup for him in terms of generating strikeouts. Toronto number one in strikeout rate on the season, but even the last 30 days, they've actually lowered their strikeout rate by another half percentage point. 17.5% on the season, 16.8% over the last 30 days. So a lineup that continues to grind people down, not strike out. They have the lowest swinging strike rate in baseball, the lowest or the highest out of zone contact rate in baseball. So if you try to get sliders, to swing and miss outside of the zone, they're really good at fouling those off and extending counts. And then the third highest in zone contact rate in baseball as well. So Toronto, very difficult to strike out, very good at wearing opposing pitchers down and getting them out of the game. And ideally, they knock out Skeens at 100 pitches after 5.5 innings tonight. And that will be their goal as an offense to get into that Pirates bullpen as early as possible. I make them about minus 115 Toronto in this matchup, would bet them up to minus 105, and also getting Kevin Gausman on our side of the matchup too. Obviously encouraging considering his resurgence this season, kind of splitting the difference between a very poor 2024 and a solid 2023. So yeah, Jays to minus 105, one of my favorite bets today. And then, as I said, with the Suarez, fading Suarez props, I think this is probably a good day to target the under on Skeens, even though it's probably a little suppressed, relative to where it is normally. If it's normally 7.5 or 8, it's probably 7 or 6.5 today. So it's likely lower, but I do think some SGP, correlations with Skeens under and Jays money line, like all of that seems very viable considering how the Jays grind opposing teams down.
The rest of your card is pretty under heavy here. We're going to look at St. Louis against Miami under 8. So much for the playoff fish storyline. Miami 4-10 across their last 14, but Perez gets the ball here, takes to the hill. He's been really solid the last 6 weeks. I assume your model likes him to get the ball to the bullpen and really only have one or two runs up on the board for the Redbirds. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, he actually has given up 9 in his past 2 starts, but even the last start, no walks, 8 strikeouts. Like that's really what I care about more so than guys giving up runs, even in smaller samples. Command of the strike zone, and the command hasn't gone away. Still a 110 stuff plus in those outings. Yuri, I think, is an elite pitcher, health provided going forward. There's actually a big disconnect between his expected FIP and his expected ERA. His expected FIP is around 4.3. The expected ERA is closer to 3 because he is elite stuff and it's very difficult to barrel him up. So even if the strikeout and walk numbers aren't as optimal as they should be for a guy with a 3 xERA, the contact abilities of opposing offenses on him are relatively suppressed. He gives up a lot of fly balls, but a lot of them are weakly hit fly balls, and he has a pretty high pop-up rate too. So normally, seeing a guy with like an 18% strikeout minus walk, which is above average, it's fine. It's closer to a number 2 starter than an ace. Normally seeing that, I'm like, okay, what's the ground ball rate? Ground ball rate 30%. Oh my God, this guy's probably getting, giving up a ton of homers. It's not the case. He gives up a lot of weakly hit fly balls. So despite the fly ball lean, despite the not ace level strikeout minus walk rate, I do actually think Yuri's an ace. The main piece of this, though, aside from Yuri being great, Miami offensively is much better against righties than they are against lefties. 11th versus 26th on the season. Last 30 days, 71 WRC plus against lefties, a 26th in baseball. They're 9th against righties. So 11th versus 26th on the season, 9th versus 26th over the past 30 days. Miami offense much lesser against left-handed pitching. Under, I like 2-8 at minus 118 here.
All right, let's go to another alt under targeting the Orioles and Red Sox sitting at 8.5. Trevor Rogers, under. I say less, as the kids would say. He's been dynamite since making his 2025 debut in late May. 1.43 ERA. He's even trimmed down on his free passes in recent weeks. What makes him so good in your eyes? And does he absolutely just tip this matchup in terms of the total?
Well, his velocity is spiked by 2 ticks relative to last season. So anybody who gains, a tick on a velocity is worth about a third of a run on an ERA. Again, 2 ticks, you're talking more than a half run, right? In terms of lowering your ERA. Look at this stuff. Look at the underlying indicators for Rogers. Bot ERA is down about a half run versus last year. That's most of it, right? Like he's just throwing harder. Now his ERA is in the mid ones. He's gotten really lucky in terms of BABIP suppression, home run to fly ball rate suppression, 212 BABIP, about 300 career, 3% home run to fly ball, about 9% career. So those are going to go up, but even when those go up, his ERA should still be in the threes, in the mid threes, not in the fours like it was previously. His expected ERA is right around 3. He has a 3.6 expected FIP and a 3.48 bot ERA. I think that is what Trevor Rogers is a mid threes pitcher, a number 2 starter. Obviously not going to maintain that sub 2 ERA very likely for longer, but I still think this is a much more effective pitcher than what we've seen from in years past. And also, this is a kid who, when he first came up in the big leagues, his rookie year was throwing this well, had some injury issues. Now seems like he's finally getting back to it. These stowers for Rogers trade still not aging the best for the Orioles, but at least it's not aging as poorly as it used to. I think a very interesting piece of this matchup, too, is Dustin May for the Red Sox. They've taken him in and modified his pitch mix, which they do with all of their starters. But his last start was really strong. 6 innings, 6 shutout innings, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts against the Astros. And the Red Sox are modifying his pitch mix. Fewer sinkers and sliders, more fastballs and cutters. The cutter's gone up from 7% to 25%. The sinker has gone down from 36% to 19%. Those are the 2 biggest changes, but also adding to the fastball, decreasing from the slider, getting a new pitch mix from Dustin May, and a little bit towards the pitch mix he had when he was most successful in the big league. So as I brought up to Grant before the show, Grant and I were discussing the difficulty of the home run slate today. This is a good slate for unders because there is some cold weather in August relative to what we normally have. 66 degrees in Boston today on August 18th is just low for this time of year. Lowers my projected total from about 9.1 on a weather neutral day to closer to 8 for today. So the under 8.5 to minus 110 between the Red Sox and the Orioles.
Let's look at an over 8.5 between the White Sox and the Braves. The Braves have won 8 of 9. They're sending Spencer Strider to the bump. But at this point, we have to admit that there's something wrong with the 26-year-old. He's
Yeah.
currently in the worst stretch of his career as a starter, 8 and 2/3 innings across his last two starts. He's given up 19 hits, 13 earned, and 5 homers. Is there something physically wrong with him? And if so, should they just shut him down? Obviously, they're out of the playoff race. The damage psychologically or potentially physically for their former ace, he's just in a tailspin right now.
I don't know if there's, anything they can do to fix him. Like this might just be what Spencer Strider is at this point, or maybe with, an off season to rest, the arm gets a little bit better. But I would imagine if they thought, they could shut him down and get more out of him if he's dealing with something, they would because they have nothing to play for at this point. This just might be what Spencer Strider is at this point. And if that's the case, it's extremely disappointing because there's a huge drop off in effectiveness in the span of just 2 years. 2022, 2023, Strider's strikeout minus walk rate was near 30%. As we say in the past, that's where the best pitchers in baseball can live. DeGrom basically schemes like nobody else. And the high leverage relievers, they can cross 30% in terms of strikeout minus walk. Past 2 years, he's closer to 17%. And that's not the only concerning sign. The velocity has gone down every single year. 4 years ago, 98.2. 3 years ago, 97.2. Last year, 96.3. This year, 95.6. So you've gone down almost 2.5 ticks, 3 ticks on your fastball in a 3 year span from 98.2 to 95.6. The stuff plus has gone down 3 straight years, 117, 107, and now 97 this year. And the bot ERA has gone up 3 straight years, 3.2 to 4 to 4.8. So there is nothing in Spencer Strider's profile that says that he should be pitching better. There are no signs that say the stuff is still there, but the command is not. Just wait for it, like there was with Sandy Alcantara earlier in the season. The stuff is just down, and the velocity is just down, and there's nothing you can do to fix that aside from throwing your fastball less and throwing secondary pitches more. But as we've seen with Strider, he hasn't really been able to develop the curve or the changeup to a point where he's willing to throw it more than a few times a game. He's got about a 5% usage rate combined on those two pitches. It's still all fastball slider, and the fastball is not nearly as good as it used to be. So, yeah, I'm down on Strider. I make this total about 9.25. I bet the over 9 at even money, and it is the one bet or the one over bet on my card as of now. I think the Pirates Jays total is just a little bit low at 7, but with Skeens on the bump, I'm less interested in betting the over straight, especially with the Pirates offense, than I am in finding ways to target against Skeens in the prop market. So yeah, this is the one over I like for today. White Sox and Braves over 8.5 up to 9 at even money.
Let's close with an under in the NL West between the Giants and Padres. It's getting close to last stand time for the Giants when you look at the ground they have to make up in the wild card race. Luckily, it starts with Robbie Ray today. It seems like he has his command issues squared away. Last month, he was issuing 3, 4, 5 walks in a couple starts. But he just faced this Padre lineup a week ago, and that did not go well. So why are you targeting the under here? What's the main storyline that drew you to a potential play?
Yeah, even though he gave up 4 runs in that start, still 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Like as you said, the command has seemed to be a little bit better. In August, 4 walks, 18 strikeouts. July was 14 walks, 24 strikeouts. So I think the command, in terms of like looking at the pitch modeling metrics, looking at everything, the command is just much better this month. And I think Robbie Ray is back to where he was earlier in the season. I was betting against him in August. I've come back around, or I was betting against him in July. I've come back around on him in August. Now, I bet the under in that game last time. Padres won 5-1. Cortez and Ray, I believe, faced one another. Both of these teams are lesser against lefties than they're against righties. That's the main piece of it. They're both in their lesser split here. And the Giants, in fact, may be the worst offense in baseball against left-handed pitching. 29th on the year, last 30 days, 30th with a 58 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. Padres have been better against lefties than they have, or Padres have been better of late against lefties. I mean, adding Laureano is a big piece for them. They have a bunch of righties who should hit lefties well, Tatis, Machado. So the lineup sets up okay against lefties. They're still like 10th. They're not, not top 5, not top 3. 9th over the past 30 days. On the season, I believe they're closer to league average, but against right-handed pitching. Both of these teams are way better. Last 30 days, 6th and 8th, respectively, as opposed to 11th and 30th against left-handed pitching. So lesser splits. Pod's bullpen, probably the best in baseball since the deadline. First in pitching plus, second in stuff plus, fifth in expected FIP, second in strikeout minus walk rate. I project them as the best bullpen in baseball right now, and they are relatively well rested behind Cortez today. So expecting a 5 and die from Cortez, and then 4 high leverage relievers from the Padres against the Giants offense that is struggling for runs. As long as Ray limits the walks tonight, I think this game stays under. I like the under 7.5 to -110. I projected this closer to 7. Got some 8s last night. I think this has moved, though, directionally in the correct place this morning, but under 7.5 to -110. Actually, one of my favorite bets on today's slate. I know we saved this for last, but in terms of just like pick from your card, which do you like best? This is up there.
We welcome into the show Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds. You're digging into the batter's box, hoping to take some of these home run props over the outfield fence. You also had to dig deep. You mentioned before the show wasn't exactly the most robust card. Some pitching issues, some weather issues. Walk us through your 3 and why they landed on your official card here for Monday.
Yep, thanks, guys. Yeah, not the greatest day for home runs, but I got a 3-leg parlay paying out at 262 to 1. Let's get started with the first leg. Riley Green plus 500 over at MGM. Gets a matchup versus Arrighetti, who's been a below average matchup for lefty power so far this season, but due for a little bit of negative regression. Decent fly ball number sitting at 42%, decent hard contact number sitting at 32%. Green been great this season, has a bunch of bombs, 17.6% barrel rate on the year. Weather is largely neutral in this spot, so getting Green at plus 500 here is a bit too high. Next up, Colson Montgomery plus 575. This just seems like a real bad line for him here. Going up against Strider, you guys already talked about how much Strider has struggled, and he's been bad versus lefties, giving up 1.55 home runs per 9 on the season. The fly ball numbers high at 40%. Hard contact near 36%. Montgomery 10 bombs in 37 games so far in the bigs. Tons of power, has a platoon split. Weather over in Atlanta, one of the few good weather games with temps near 90 in this spot. Good humidity, wind crossing, so 575 for Montgomery, too high. And then lastly, Ketel Marte plus 550. Marte has been absolutely fantastic this season. Career high barrel rate, 23 home runs in 93 games. He's been playing great recently. While he only has 1 home run in the last 5 or 6 games, that Coors series, so many balls just off the top of the wall. I know, I bet him, and they were infuriating to watch. But getting him at plus 550 here, going up against Gavin Williams, who hasn't been terrible when it comes to allowing lefty powers, but it's still above average at 1.21. And you look at the underlying numbers, fly ball rate near 40%, hard contact rate near 35%. So not a terrible matchup overall for lefty power here. And Marte is far too good to be priced this high in this spot. So parlay all 3 of them together, 262 to 1 over at MGM. I'm out of here.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard from Zerillo or Neiffer in today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. Also, don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app, which we're going to be rolling out new updates, bells and whistles in the coming weeks, as I mentioned earlier in the show. And leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Payoff Pitch. For Sean Zerillo and Grant Neiffer, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.